What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast Preview Show for Saturday, January 16th. I'm Brinson. I'm your host, and I'm wearing glasses for the first time in my entire life outside of sunglasses. These are these blue light glasses. We'll see how well they work. Joining me to preview these two games and talk about the entire weekend from a DFS perspective. The man, you know what? Now I feel bad. I don't want to say the man, the myth, the legend anymore. Not because of you, Frank, because you are fantastic. But I was watching, Joey. Oh God, what's his last name? From I think he works at Barstool, but he does like the Colin Cowherd impressions.
Okay.
He's the funniest guy on Twitter. Like but he did a learning office lingo impression, and one of them was like the man, the myth, the legend. I was like, oh my God, I'm just an old man. Joey Molinaro. You follow him on Twitter?
Maybe
he is like my favorite new follow. Every impression he does is unbelievable. Anyway, Frank Stampfl joining me to break down the DFS and the gambling stuff. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Yo, what up? Long time no see, Will. I'm digging
it. Been a while since week 17, right?
Yeah, it's been a while here. I just followed your boy Joey Molinaro, Barstool Sports. I'll check it out.
I'm telling you, man, these impressions he does. Colin Cowherd, his Nick Saban is the funniest thing on the planet. He did like Nick Saban giving out Halloween candy. That was like the first one. I guess I followed him around Halloween time, but like Nick Saban giving out Halloween candy. It's like, hey, now, you don't take two. I'm trying to build a program around here, okay? We don't take two. I got to decide if these glasses are going to be permanent or not. I kind of like them. My wife told me I look good in them and said maybe you should be a glasses guy, so maybe I'll go with them. But you know what is more important than glasses and me talking about my eyewear? Is talking about the NFL playoffs and looking at these games. We start with the game that kicks off in exactly 1 hour. It is the Rams at the Packers. Now, so for our purposes, we're going to do DFS first, and we'll run through the games and talk about some bets and all that, because I think we maybe do a disservice with the DFS stuff at the back end. If you have a question in the Twitch chat, I think we're live on YouTube as well, but I'm not entirely sure. If you are in those chats and you have a question about any props, bets, DFS picks, whatever it is that you want to ask us, let us know. Devo will toss it up on the screen. I'll try and jump in the chat as well and read them off, and we'll answer them. And Frank and I will do our best to give you some actionable advice in this next 60 minutes. So from a DFS perspective, Frank, the guys at DraftKings, after really, you can kind of tell where they want you. I mean, you can easily tell where they want your money. And I'm surprised and I'm pleased at the way that they handled the slate over this weekend, because if you look at what they're doing, the millionaire, the 3.5 millionaire, 1 million to first plus like 100, some kind of entry as well, is spread out over the course of the 2 days. And I think that is so much better than just putting all the money into the two game slate on Saturday. What about you?
Yeah, I think I like the 4-game slate in general, but for this weekend in particular, it's tough, Will. I've found myself gravitating more so towards the 2-game slate for each day, just because the decision points are so tough, man.
They are.
This is, and it's a good thing, because that means there's a lot of talented players playing this weekend, and obviously we'll get into all of it, but it's stacked. A lot of people consider this the best weekend in, some say sports, but football, I mean, these are the best, 18.
It's definitely the best weekend in football. It might be the best weekend in sports. I mean, these 4 games, although, Frank, I do think there's a chance that we could be a little disappointed in this weekend, because wild card weekend, typically 4 games. Now we had 6 games. So I wonder if people will be like, oh, I kind of missed that extra juice from the football. You know what I mean? Like you're getting 2 less games. I wonder if people might be down on divisional weekend a little bit because of that. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think so. Last weekend was a lot, man. It was just a long football weekend. So it was a lot for people to take in. I think people are still going to enjoy this weekend a lot. And look, we have 8 great teams playing here, but man, I found myself, the decision points here, Will, they are tough, and we can talk it through, but I found myself gravitating more so towards the 2-day slate, the 2-game slates for each day rather than the 4-game slate. But obviously I have lineups in both regardless. So let's jump in.
So what was it as a result of you just not being able to get the guys in you. So like I did some lineups. I went out and took my dog George for a nice 45-minute walk, get some fresh air. I know I'm not going to see much of the outdoors for the next 48 hours. So I'm trying to squeeze in as much, outdoor time as I can, wear the dog out so my wife doesn't have to deal with it when I disappear. And like I'll reappear like for a couple of minutes in order to snag my Postmates delivery. And then I'll like crawl back up to my man cave here where I'm watching football. But so I found that I was not putting in like a lot of Stephon Diggs and a lot of Devontae Adams, which is terrifying because those guys are, if you faded Stephon Diggs last week, you didn't win any money at all because Diggs went nuts, and Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in football, and Adams is probably the best wide receiver in football. But if you want Chiefs players tomorrow, good luck getting Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not a matter of like there's enough players to go around. Like that's not the problem. And there's enough salary too. Like you can fit everyone in. It's just deciding, do I go Michael Thomas at 6,700 or do I go Stephon Diggs at 7,700 for the reasons you just mentioned? We know that he can be a slate breaker. So if you are playing the 4-game slate, I think this is probably the week where, you want to have as many lineups, as many variations as you possibly can. It's not really your single entry weekend where you just kind of make one lineup and forget about it. I think you try and make as many different variations as you possibly can because there are so many different decision points for this slate.
Right. Well, let's walk through it position by position. How about that? Or do you want to do game by game?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever you want to do.
Okay. You know what? Let's do game by game. That way people can sort of look at it from the two slates. So we'll start with the Rams and the Packers. What a professional I am, by the way. It's like, hey, Frank, I know we're live and 4 minutes into the show. How do you want to do the show? Like, do you want to do game by game, position by? Do you want to talk DFS or props? It's been a. I'll say this. It's been a 48 hours in my house. So if you want to do the let's bring up DraftKings on the 2-game slate and we'll talk about that. Let's talk about, you want to talk about the 4-game or the 2-game first? I mean, I find myself leaning towards the 4-game, but maybe that's because I like the contest better.
Yeah.
I have no problem, rolling with, let's look at this Saturday special, 20K to first, Saturday only. If you fire this up, I mean, you have 4 quarterbacks to choose from in Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Jared Goff. But really, Frank, you have 3 quarterbacks to choose from because you should not play. And correct me if you think I'm wrong, but you should not play Jared Goff with a busted thumb in 30-degree weather in Lambeau Field. Even if you think he's thrown it 40 times, I don't think you should do it because you know who doesn't think he's thrown 40 times? Sean McVay. That's who. He doesn't want him throwing the ball.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. 2-game slate, 4-game slate, it doesn't matter. You're not playing Jared Goff, especially in the 4-game slate, because for $100 more, you can get Baker Mayfield in a much better game environment. So I would much.
I like Baker a lot.
In
the 4-game slate.
I like Baker a lot too, and it unlocks so much for you to be able to do to get up to those big wide receivers and really just stack that entire game in general. If you want the Chiefs and the Browns, get as many of them as you possibly can. I mean, getting Baker in there is a good way to do so. So yeah, we're not looking at Jared Goff. If we're just sticking with, you want to go all of Saturday right now, you want to just look at the Packers versus Rams. How are we doing this?
It's really, I mean, I think let's talk about Packers versus Rams. So Aaron Rodgers is obviously somebody that you can play if you want. I don't think I will play him on the 4-game slate because I would rather spend up for Mahomes or spend down for Baker Mayfield or even spend down for Tom Brady or Drew Brees. But I could see him being kind of under-owned in the 2-game slate here with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, $700 and $500 more than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get him at a lower roster rate. There's no doubt about it. If you worry about matchups, it's obviously not a very good matchup for him going up against this Rams defense, but their secondary in general, they've allowed just 5 touchdown passes over their last 5 games, and that included 2 games against Russell Wilson and 1 game against Kyler. So this defense is just playing lights out right now. I don't know if it really matters because Aaron Rodgers, once they get in the red zone, they just pass so much.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for not necessarily a leverage point, but I think someone who you can get at a lower roster rate, I think Rodgers is in play there. But just in general, if you're looking for highest value per dollar, I'm probably looking at the 2 quarterbacks in the later game in over Rodgers.
You know what else would happen if I'd shown up on time for our pre-production discussion? We could have I could be putting these up on the up on the screen and we could be talking about them. But look at me. I'm not good at that. All right, we're gonna bring up this millionaire just because this is sort of the this is the 4-game slate. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Share screen, and Debo, when it brings up the DraftKings, feel free to approve me. Let me in right away, please. Thank you. And so when you look at the 4-game slate, we have Patrick Mahomes, and is much more expensive than everybody else. Actually, interestingly enough, the price points for Jackson, Allen, and Rodgers are all the same. Is that how they did it? They don't make the prices different for the 2-game slate?
No, yeah, they're not different at all. That's why, I mean, there's overlap. We could talk about them at the same time.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, I was worried about that. All right, yeah. All right, so when you look at the 4-game slate, then, as we point out, look, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are awesome. They have rushing equity, rushing touchdown equity. I have a hard time getting away from Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, though.
Yeah.
Wow. Matt Jarens in YouTube predicts Lamar Jackson will rush for over 200 yards in tonight's game. If that happens, I will be losing a lot of money because Lamar Jackson will probably be the winner here in terms of production.
Yeah, that means you probably want him in your DFS lineup. You want to hit that prop too. I think it's at 78.5 for
already hit that. Yep.
Yeah, for Lamar Jackson's rushing. I think Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, and Baker are the 4 quarterbacks that I'm looking at. And I wouldn't mind having any in my lineup. We know what Mahomes' upside can be. He's been a little bit more disappointing recently, but I mean, the Browns secondary has given up some really big games this year. They have allowed 3 or more touchdown passes 6 times this season. But Mahomes has been between 20 and 27 DK points each of his last 4 games. So
the Browns are 29th against DVOA on deep passes. Via our buddy Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders. 29th in DVOA on deep passes, 29th in DVOA on third down conversions, and 28th in DVOA against tight ends. So Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, probably going to be a chalky stack, but there's nothing wrong with it.
There absolutely is nothing. And you know what I found myself doing a lot this weekend, Will?
What's that?
Dual tight end lineups.
Yes.
I'm getting Kelce and Hooper in together, and you're just getting all the exposure to that game. Hooper is 3,800 on DraftKings this week, and his target share has been up recently. We know that the Chiefs struggle against tight ends. They allowed the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. Last 4 weeks, Hooper, a 26% target share, 9 red zone targets during that span. So at 3,800, I have a tournament lineup with Mahomes, Hardman, Hill, Kelce, Hooper, Landry. And then you can fit you fit in Devin Singletary and Cam Akers, and then whatever defense. I think it's like the Rams. So you're not going to get a good defense in, but I mean, it gives you all the exposure to that game. And if it blows up and goes for 65, 70 total points, you want all those pieces in that game.
Does it concern you that Mecole Hardman, who I think will probably be a pretty popular cheap play on DraftKings, has 29 career postseason receiving yards? They did not use him at all. Now, Sammy Watkins was out. I'll give you that. Do you prefer Mecole Hardman to Demarcus Robinson?
I do. The target share has been better for Hardman recently, although Robinson has been on the field more. He has ran a few more routes, but I just think Hardman gets open more. I just think he's a better player than Demarcus Robinson at this point. So, and the fact that he's
explosive player who can,
for sure. And I think he's either $300 or $400 cheaper. So you put all those things combined, you don't really need him to do much. If he hits like 8 to 10, sure. But if he has one long touchdown, then you're gold at 3,900.
Yeah. And look, even if he's the final 2 weeks of the season, now week 17, take with a huge grain of salt. But over 60% of the snaps for Mecole Hardman, you sort of wonder if maybe they're ramping him up to be that extra weapon in the playoffs. And there's nothing wrong with Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Mecole Hardman in the lineup. And then, as you point out, bring it back with Landry. Higgins concerns me a little bit. He's out on the field a ton. I like how we're like, let's talk about Rams Packers. And then, now we're
talking that game, man. Let's talk about the fun game. It's the Browns.
Anyway, yeah. So we'll get to the wide receivers in a second. We'll get back to those guys. But I agree with you. I think Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, and Mayfield. I'm sort of bypassing Rodgers. I worry a little bit that the Packers could get a lead and squat on it, and that they will force Jared Goff to try to win this game by stacking the box against Cam Akers. And with Tom Brady with Drew Brees, I mean, the Buccaneers are a pass funnel. They're good against the run and they force teams to throw. But I think it's going to be a lot of Kamara and a lot of Michael Thomas. They're very methodical. Certainly, they could, if they score, it could be rushing touchdowns or some Taysom Hill action, which is a little concerning. Brees is not going to have those big shots. And Brady just hasn't played well against elite defenses. They're 0-5 against the spread and so far against teams with defenses in top 10 in DVOA, which includes the Washington football team from last week. And so that just concerns me a little bit. He put up some numbers last week. Washington, not as good as the Saints, though. I'm a little worried. I think I don't know. We'll see on that one, but I'm with you. I'm not touching Brady's not a bad contrarian option though, if they're chasing points. I don't think.
Yeah, it's not. I don't like. No one's going to want to roster Brady this week, but I think for good reason. You mentioned the Saints defense, how they played, and how Brady has struggled against tough defenses all year. He had 12 interceptions this season. 5 of those came against the New Orleans Saints in 2 games. So I do worry about that. It's a great spot to be in terms of the dome, the environment. A pretty good, a great total at that. It's up over 50 points. So there is a lot to like there. I think if I'm choosing between one of those quarterbacks, I would go Brady over Brees just because Brees has not impressed me recently. And Taysom Hill coming in the red zone and specific, potentially stealing away a touchdown from inside the 5 or inside the 10, I think is a real possibility. So I'm off Brees for sure.
I'll say this. If you're doing like a smaller field tournament and let's say, I don't know, maybe you're doing the $100 single entry or $50 single entry or whatever it is, and you have a couple of guys going today and they don't necessarily pick up the points that you need, and you feel like you're behind the 8 ball going into tomorrow and you have Mahomes or Baker Mayfield, maybe you pivot to Tom Brady. And with the presumption there that if you go big on the Buccaneers, you'll be able to leverage the field and maybe somehow miraculously the Chiefs-Browns game is not a shootout. Yeah, I think that's really the only justification I think I would have to moving towards Brady. And again, you're not doing that on a 2-game slate, obviously, because that game is tomorrow.
No, it's a good point that you bring up with the late swap, though, because if you do find yourself trailing after today on the 4 game, everybody is going to be on the Chiefs and the Browns.
Correct.
So there are a ton of people to choose from in that Saints and Bucks game as well. So if you want to pivot off of a Tyreek Hill or a Travis Kelce and you want to get to like a Michael Thomas or a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin to like differentiate yourself, if you're down after today, I think you should keep that in mind as a late swap option.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about that tomorrow too. All right, let's look at the running backs. Man, next time I'm telling my wife that my show starts at 2:30 and not 3:30. Because when I tell her it starts at 3:30, I'm not expected to leave until 3:15. Like that's how a show works. Anyway. Let's get to the running backs. Alvin Kamara is the top priced guy at 7,900. A very difficult matchup in terms of running the football, but obviously he is a big time pass catching back. Although, I think his total at William Hill is not, surprisingly low for what you might expect. I think it's like in the 35 range. Let's find here. What do you think about Kamara and these running backs in particular, Frank? I think the early game maybe offers a better opportunity for the running backs with Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. Cam Akers, even despite having a monster stretch here, still only 5,700 with a great matchup against Green Bay.
Yeah, real quick on Kamara, you mentioned the props. It's 36.5 receiving over at William Hill, 61.5 rushing, 101.5 for rushing and receiving combined. So if anyone's interested in that for Kamara, I found myself I just eating the chalk this week when it comes to Devin Singletary. There's no Zach Moss in that game. And if you want to get up to those wide receivers, you need to spend down somewhere. And Singletary is 4,500. And I think he's probably safe for at least 12 to 15 touches. And we might even see that get, closer to 20, depending on how the game flow in that game goes. So Singletary, I've been gravitating towards. Akers, I know it's tough to rely on running backs as road dogs, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the workload that he's getting right now, it's back-to-back weeks, over 20 touches. Once they get in the red zone, if they manage to get into the red zone in this game, I think they're just going to feed Akers. And the Packers have been a little bit better against the run recently, but they have allowed some big games to running backs on the season. So he's only 5,700. I have found myself just jamming those two running backs in the lineup most of the time and just spending up on Kelsey, the wide receivers, and potentially the quarterbacks as well. So those are really the running backs that I've been looking at. But that means you are going to have a ton of leverage plays. And this is what I'm talking about, Will. I mean, there's just so many great options this week. I think that if the Browns, as much as I've talked about liking Baker, their key to winning that game is probably keeping the ball away from Mahomes. And if they do that with Nick Chubb, who is, I believe, 6,600.
Yes, Chubb 6,600. So I think the two interesting guys here that no one's looking at, I think Chubb and Dobbins. Like I found myself when looking at these lineups, I didn't want to go Chubb because I do think it's going to be a shootout. But you're right, there is a contrarian path where that game is not a shootout. And then Dobbins, like I think Dobbins could go for $150 against the Bills, and it would not surprise me at all. I love his over in rushing yards. That game is tonight, of course. I think the Bills are not good against the run. And Jonathan Taylor was running really well. We've seen it over the past, like you can run on them if you have a good offensive line and you have a good run game. And the Ravens have a great run game. I could see both Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins topping the 100-yard mark, and that would not surprise me at all. I took the over, and I said this on our podcast on Friday. I took the over on Cam Akers rushing yards as well. It's up to like 75.5. I have no problem still going over that. I think he gets there. But I think Dobbins and Chubb are really interesting at this position because I tend to believe that people will gravitate towards Akers. Like they're going to like pair two out of Kamara, Jones, Akers, and Hunt, or two out of Kamara, Jones, one of those guys plus Akers or Kareem Hunt or Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be on Akers and Singletary, as I mentioned, but Kamara, like this is a very fair price for him at 7,900. You got to keep in mind it's a tough matchup. And I worry a little bit about Kamara because the targets have been down recently, and especially last week. I believe it was only 2 targets for him. Still saw a big workload, 25 touches in general, but a lot of that was garbage time. It was, the last 2 drives, they were just feeding Alvin Kamara on the ground. So as much as I like the player, and I know what his upside can be, I have been gravitating away from Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. I think the problem is he's just going to have to catch a ton of passes, and we don't know exactly what his pass catching role will be in a situation where Michael Thomas is back and with Devin White now out there on the field. You would presume that Devin White is the guy that they want to utilize in order to slow down Alvin Kamara. And I don't know if they'll like have him shadow him or anything like that, but I think that there's a good chance that Kamara is also designed to clear out the linebackers. Like you use Kamara coming out of the backfield as almost not a decoy. You're giving Breeze the option to look at the 2 spots and see what to do, but you have Kamara come out. If the linebackers follow him, that's going to open up slant city where Michael Thomas is the absolute mayor, and he's going to be able to get underneath and eat it up because the cornerbacks, while talented for, the secondary for Tampa Bay, I mean, that's the, if you're going to attack him, I think that's where you're going to do it. Looking at, by the way, while we're talking about the running backs, I think this cannot be true. I thought I saw somebody post this, and I'm trying to log in and see what it is. I'll open up William Hill too and see what the touchdown props are. If we can get let's see, where is my man? I want to see what Cam Akers is for first touchdown in this Rams Packers game. Obviously, anybody who listens to this show, I see him like 7-1. That's not terrible, I guess. Here I'm gonna pop over Debo to this William Hill. We'll throw William Hill up there and look at these touchdown scores. I'm just curious, Frank, what you think of any of these guys. I'm trying to kind of haphazardly go through this list. I think Debo's giving me full permission just to share my screen. What a guy. He finally trusts me enough to let me share my entire screen, not regulating it all. So first touchdown score in this early game that is at 435. I don't mind Akers there at 7-1 or 6.5 to 1. I think people will probably hammer Devontae Adams. There's nothing wrong with going with Devontae Adams. He's priced back up at 5 to 1, got down to 3.5 to 1. He is the automatic first touchdown scorer all season long, really, that I've said to hit on, and I still have no problem with it. That price is perfectly fine if you want to take that. I don't mind Robert Woods at 12 to 1. Malcolm Brown is interesting at 25 to 1. Sometimes, at least with Darrell Henderson, they would pull Henderson out and use Brown. But I don't know if I necessarily trust them to use Brown here. Goff, I don't think they'll sneak in this spot. Josh Reynolds is somebody they've used out of the, in these short areas. And Aaron Rodgers, I would probably sprinkle on at 28-1 if I was going first touchdown. Any thoughts there for you, Frank?
Yeah, you hit a lot of the ones that I like. Tunyon, it always gets used in the red zone as well. Devontae Adams just led the entire NFL in red zone targets. So 5-1, I think, will be very popular. I do like Akers. Robert Woods was someone that I was going to mention. There's no Cooper Kupp in that game. So I think he is a safe bet for the floor is 8 targets, and we could see as many as like 15 if this game gets out of control and they're just playing from behind. So we'll talk about Woods a little bit more from a DFS perspective, but 12-1 for first touchdown score. I like that one as well. Cam Akers just to score a touchdown, any touchdown, it's -120. So you got to lay some juice there, but I think it's a pretty fair one.
That's a good bet.
They have I think it's like 19.5 team total for the Rams. They're expected to score at least 2 touchdowns in this game. You really think Akers is not going to be one of the touchdown scorers if the Rams score 2 touchdowns?
I like that. I like that a lot, Frank.
Yep.
-120 there for Akers. Geez, Devontae Adams -162. Look at the disparity though for Woods, right? So Akers, I mean, you're talking about he's less than 2-1 to score a touchdown anytime. The only reason he's up there at 12-1 and not cheaper, one, I don't think that you're right. I don't think the Cooper Kupp, you see him locked out there, but I don't think that is priced in correctly in terms of what he should be. He probably should be closer to like 9-1 or 8-1 with Kupp out. And then you see anytime touchdown score plus 188. That tells me there's some value there at 12-1. So I would be looking at that as well. All right, back to here we go. Liv LIVVW on YouTube says I took Cam Akers, Lazard, and Tunyon to score in this game. I like Big Bob Tunyon receiving touchdown. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Geez, plus 138. I thought that'd be a better price. Lazard plus 275. William Hill being a little cheap on us here. Rodgers 5-1 anytime touchdown. He loves running the red zone. I have no problem with that.
I was going to say, Will, if you're going to play Devontae Adams to score 1 touchdown at -162, you might as well just go to score two or more touchdowns at plus 333.
Ooh, look at this, Frank. A double on Devontae Adams and Cam Akers to score a touchdown pays out almost 2-1.
Yeah, I just saw that.
And Devontae Adams and Robert Woods pays out 3.5-1. I don't mind either one of those one bit. All right, let's cruise back here. And what about Rams DST first score? Somebody asked on YouTube. The YouTube chat is popping. I'm not sure if the Twitch chat. There we go. We got some people rolling in the Twitch chat. Any thoughts? Redeer one says, Will, those headphones look ridiculous. The headphones or the glasses? My headphones look ridiculous? I wear these headphones every day. They're professional. I mean, I guess they're a little like weird and spiky. I got a lot going on with my face these days.
Well, I think if I'm going to play a DST to score first in that game, why wouldn't you go Packers plus 550? I mean, you get them at the same price. Of course, you get the ball hawks with the Rams, and they have kind of a nose for scoring. But Jared Goff, fumble one, throw a pick 6, playing from I think that's possible as well.
Okay. Just looking here, Akers, and you know what? I'm going to make sure that those double. Let's see. I'm just curious how this works out. I wonder if they can let you parlay touchdown scores on William Hill. Nope. They will not let you do that. Usually they'll throw up a parlay there if you're able to do it. Unfortunately, they don't. But you can do the double touchdown. I don't mind that at all. Plus 188. All right. Cruising back over to DraftKings to look at the DFS. What does it pay for the rushing yards on both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson to go over as a correlated bet? 12 Steps asks, do I use Just for Men? You know what? I don't use Just for Men. I don't have gray hair. I am all natural, dark, all over. It's very furry and no gray hair yet. Some have popped up in the beard, none in the hair. I am hoping that it will last for a while. Although I will say that my father had a luxurious mane himself, Frank, until about 1999, when it all turned gray when I was a freshman in college. And then in 2003, my father's hair all fell out when my brother was a freshman in college. So who knows what the hell will happen once Robbie goes off to school and I melt down. That's entirely possible that we have a similar outcome. If wouldn't be surprising at all. So DraftKings, back to there. I mentioned I really like Dobbins in the over rushing yards in that game. I agree with Frank. Singletary's can be very chalky, but there's nothing wrong with going with him at wide receiver. There are tons of options. Debo, if you could share that. Thank you, sir. Devontae Adams, 8,600, priced appropriately. I actually think, Frank, and this is the first game, as we mentioned, that there's a chance people go away from Devontae Adams because of the Jalen Ramsey factor. Do you?
I think it's going to be a combination of Ramsey and just the fact that there are so many wide receivers to choose from this week. It's normally he's head and shoulders better than everyone else. And I still do think that he is better than everyone else. But when you can get Stephon Diggs for 1,300 less, when you can get Michael Thomas for 1,900 less, that's where you have to make those tough decisions. So I still do like Adams. I think you're going to get him at a lower roster rate than we're used to seeing. 8,600 is a very steep price, but as great as Jalen Ramsey is, DK Metcalf scored 2 touchdowns last week as well, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I think we would all agree that Devonta Adams is a better player than DK Metcalf. So mentioned he led the NFL in red zone targets this past season, Devonta Adams. If you want to pay up at 8,600, I have absolutely no problem. You're probably going to need to spend down at wide receiver after that, where you can get Hollywood Brown at 5,200, I think is the way that he's playing right now. I never thought that he would become a consistent wide receiver, especially for fantasy. But Hollywood Brown has been extremely consistent. Jarvis Landry also under 6K, 5,600. Robert Woods, 59, no Cooper Kupp. I mentioned, I think the floor for Woods is at least targets. And we're
9, 8, 4, 7, 6, 8, 8 targets for Hollywood Brown since the epic squeaky wheel game against the Titans, where he got 3 targets for no catches, and you saw his price plummeted the following week. And his floor has been 13 DraftKings points scored so far. He's got over 20 in the last 2 weeks, including that must-win game against Cincinnati in Week 17, where they blew him out 38-3, as you see, and then that game against Tennessee. So 33 total points in that game, and Hollywood still got up to 20 DK points. I mean, he's absolutely in play here, and I don't think people will be on Hollywood in terms of what is it insane to double stack Lamar Jackson with Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews?
No, it's not insane because if you just want to load up that entire game, that makes it easier to spend up for Diggs. It's tougher because there's just not a lot of pass volume. But the thing is, when Lamar Jackson throws, those 2 guys, I think it's since week 7, they combine for 65% of the targets, Will. Wow. So when he's throwing, it is to Hollywood Brown. It is to Mark Andrews. Andrews is $5,000. So much cheaper than Kelsey, who is up around 8K. He's close to 8K. So if you want that mid-tier option, if you don't want to spend down at Austin Hooper, if you don't want to get all the way up to Kelsey, I think Andrews is fine. But stacking all 3 of them, I mean, you need the Bills to probably get off to like a 14-zip start and just basically winning the entire time for all those to hit.
Yeah, and the problem is, I think that Baltimore understands the matchup and understands that they can run the football here. Is a Dobbins Lamar stack viable? Is that crazy?
I mean, they're not going to be. I don't think that they'll be correlated together. I think Lamar is going to he's going to run regardless, right? So it's he's basically reverting back to like the way he was playing last year. He's averaging 94.3 rushing yards per game over his last 6. So again, we mentioned his prop 78.5. I think he goes over that. He's running more. And I think that's really the only way that the Ravens have a chance. I don't think Lamar played all that great last week, Will, but he broke off one really, really long run. And, they just kind of, it all kind of just snowballed from there and they just held on to the lead. So, yeah, I definitely like Lamar and him and Dobbins together. I don't think you have to use a pass catcher with Lamar. I mean, we've used the term like naked Lamar. I think you can do it here. I think you go naked Lamar.
Okay. By the way, it looks like Devontae Adams, man, he's not going to be that highly rostered. It might be under 30%.
He will be under 30.
That's a pretty good leverage on the field. I mean, he's the best wide receiver in football. He's Aaron Rodgers' top target. He's he's the number 1 red zone target in professional football. And Green Bay, the only downside is like if you get an early Lazard bomb and a Tanyan score, and then they don't get creative with Adams and don't move him around, and they're like, whatever, Jalen Ramsey, have your fun. This is an Aaron Jones game. That would be the concern. Because if Green Bay gets up 14 points, it is. I don't know what we're gonna. I think we'll see a lot of Aaron Jones. But if they have a big lead, it could be Jamal Williams and AJ Dillon time for all we know. I mean, like that wouldn't be shocking at all.
Yeah, and no, there's definite risk for playing him at this price. I mean, you almost need the Rams to be competitive in this game, and that's what you would be rooting for. And if that's the case, you want Robert Woods on the other side as well. I mean, I think Adams and Woods are correlated pretty similarly in this game. And you don't need any quarterback. You don't need Rodgers and Goff necessarily. You can go with like a naked Lamar and then go Devontae Adams and Robert Woods. But I do think, if you are playing Adams, you probably want Woods on the other side, because that means that's what you're going to need for Adams to get where you want him to be.
Okay. By the way, in terms of betting on this first game, anything that stand out to you other than the props? We see the Rams. I see them back up to 7 on my site. The under kind of getting mashed here, and the Rams team total 19.5 under is a little intriguing to me. I could see Los Angeles not scoring 20 points pretty easily, but I mean, they could, they have defense. I actually like the Rams. We'll talk about that in a minute, but all right, let's, other wide receivers, anybody else that you like from this list? I know Cooper Kupp out. So what about Robert Woods, who you just mentioned?
Yeah, Robert Woods, love him in this spot. If we're just talking about props for him, I think it's 5.5 receptions and 55.5 receiving yards. Don't mind going over on either one of those. So definitely think he's in play from a DFS perspective as well at 5,900. Wide receivers, Michael Thomas, I think, is probably the smash. He's 6,700. He looked like himself last week. He finally scored a touchdown, his first touchdown of the year. That game indoors in the dome, massive total. Michael Thomas to me is just absolute smash at 6,700. So I think what most people need to figure out is you're smashing Thomas as that mid-tier wide receiver. You need to figure out who you want to play between Woods, Landry, and Hollywood Brown, because I think all three are in play. And then you have to figure out which wide receiver you want to spend up on between Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Diggs, because I think all of them are in play. And, that might sound like a cop-out answer, but they're all really good wide receivers, and they're all priced pretty appropriately. I mean, Diggs is 7,300. And we mentioned at the top what he's capable of. We saw that last week, even against a pretty good Colts defense. So I'm not really scared of the Ravens either.
Well, and the thing about the Ravens is we don't know what they're going to do on defense. It's a very interesting situation. That's the night game tonight. The Bills are favored by 2.5. I like the Ravens to win outright personally. I love the Ravens and the Packers. If you want to do a tease, we mentioned this. I was the only one who didn't have it as a best bet, but I'm actually going to bet it on the podcast. You would now tease the Packers down to -1, and you would tease the Ravens up to 8.5. And I think Baltimore will keep it within a touchdown. I really do. And I think they'll win outright, but obviously, you want to take the points if you can, because Buffalo's a really good football team, really well coached. They've been great all season long. It wouldn't surprise me if they won the game at all. I don't, that total is 49.5. So it's the third highest total on the board. It's coming down. I could see that not being a high scoring game, Frank.
Yeah, I can. It's tough.
Titans didn't do squat against the Ravens.
Yeah, no, they didn't. The Ravens defense did play better there. There's some weather concerns. It doesn't look like it's going to snow anymore. So maybe like later in the game, I saw like they'll get some snow showers. But in general, I'm probably staying away from the total.
In Raleigh right now. My wife just texted me a picture of Robbie at the playground in the snow, which sucks for her and is awesome for him. Good. It stopped. So it snowed for 30 seconds here.
I would stay away from the total. I hear everything you're saying about the Ravens. They played extremely well last week. I've just kind of been buying in on the Bills all year. So I like the Bills in this spot, the way that Josh Allen's playing right now. Spoke about him from a DFS perspective. I mean, the guy is just on fire. I don't really know if it matters what defense he's playing right now. So I'm rolling with the Bills. I like Josh Allen in that spot. I like Lamar over the rushing yards. There's an odds boost on William Hill, +400 for both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson to score a rushing touchdown in that game.
Oh,
it's pretty interesting.
Really?
Yep.
That's all right. Let's toss that up real quick. Oh, odds boost. I need to check those out. Although I don't bet on William Hill because, I live in North Carolina. It wouldn't be legal. Yeah. All right. So Devin Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, both to score a touchdown, +400. And as we mentioned last week too, there's actually some equity if you want to, hope that Josh Allen will. I've got a freaking smoke alarm going off. Great. If you think that Josh Allen has a chance of catching a touchdown pass, which he did against the against the Texans last year in the playoffs. See that odds boost. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, both to score a touchdown. Dez Bryant to score a touchdown, 7-1. That's always fun. When you look at first touchdown score in this late game, does anybody stand out to you as a great option? I think Dobbins at 9-1 is pretty good. Singletary probably shouldn't be double digits. Neither should Andrews. Beasley's too banged up to do it. I could see a shot play to John Brown. I think he's an interesting DFS option this week too, after he laid an egg. And then Gus Edwards gets a lot of red zone carries, so that's not crazy at all either.
Yeah, Gus Edwards is probably that long shot, 18-1, if you want to jump in on that. Hollywood Brown, they've been throwing the ball more to him in the red zone recently. Should mention it's a tougher matchup. He's probably going to be matched up with Tre'Davious White, but I think the volume that he's seeing right now still makes him viable from a DFS perspective. 12-1, don't mind that either. But if we're just talking about our favorite bets, I probably would lean with either one of the quarterbacks or J.K. Dobbins at 9-1.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's move back to DraftKings. Clearly, I'm good at navigating this. So we're going to go to DraftKings and talk about the tight ends, because I think the tight end spot is pretty critical when you're building out your lineups. You have I already put Kelsey in there, so I'll take Kelsey back out. We have Kelsey at 7,800, Mark Andrews 5,000. You mentioned Austin Hooper at 3,800. I really like. I think those are probably the only three guys I'm going with, although the absence of Cooper Kupp in the early game, Rams and Green Bay, at least makes Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett possibly interesting. And then Cameron Brate at 2,900. He is not a terrible option, Frank.
Yeah, he was used more as the pass catcher last week. Gronk, I use him in DFS. Did not work out well last week. But yeah, I'm focusing on the main three tight ends. You know who they are. It's Travis Kelce, it's Mark Andrews, Austin Hooper. Hooper at 3,800. Mentioned what he's been doing recently. Targets have been up for him. I believe it's 9 red zone targets over his last 4 games. Over his last 4 games, 9 red zone targets for Austin Hooper, 26% target share. That's just a massive number for a tight end that you're getting at 3,800. The Chiefs have struggled against the tight end as well. And that's just the best game environment on the slate. So I have gravitated towards using 2 tight end lineups this week, which I think is going to be more popular than we're used to seeing. Normally we have so many options that you don't need to go down that route. But Travis Kelce at tight end with Austin Hooper at 3,800 at your flex. I mean, it just gives you so much more flexibility to do other things in your lineup. So for me, Kelce, my favorite, Hooper, my second, and then Mark Andrews if you just want to go a different route.
Okay, I dig that. I'll be all over. I think I'll be all over the Kelce situation. I don't see how you get away from it. As I mentioned, the Browns are like 29th in DVOA against tight ends. I mean, he's gonna crush. I just don't see. Look, we talk. Somebody in the chat mentioned that there's a pathway where Nick Chubb goes off, and then the Chiefs are forced to throw like crazy, and that's true. The Browns get a lead and potentially win the game. But like you saw what Roethlisberger did in the second half. I mean, he was about to break the single game record or regular season record. It would have been, I guess, for passing yards in a game. Like if he'd gotten a couple more possessions, and you can just swing the ball all over the place against the Browns. So I think Kelce is in an absolute smash spot, and he's 2,800 more than Andrews. I know that's a ton, but like the number of targets, his upside is 3 times higher than Mark Andrews or anybody else at that position.
Yep. And does it concern you, Will, that Tyreek Hill last 4 weeks, he hasn't just a 19% target share. So, I mean, you have to spend $8K to get him in your lineup. And that's why I think I like Kelce even more. Yeah. 29% of the targets from Patrick Mahomes in a good matchup against the Cleveland Browns. I think, just jam Kelce in there, and it makes it easier if you use Hooper at the flex to get other players in there as well.
I agree with you completely. Let's talk about the defenses here, because it's a tough call. I mean, like when you're looking at the DFS defenses, you have the Packers there as the most expensive. You can't go wrong. If you want to play the Packers at 3,900 and you can get there, nothing wrong with it. They're the only team. I think they'll be popular because they're the only team that's not listed, in red. Meaning they have a good matchup. They have 30 degrees out there. It's the early game. It's Jared Goff. You can lock in your points early if they go wouldn't shock me at all if they had a strip sack for a fumble of Jared Goff and maybe scoop score. there's a ton of upside here. And they can stack the box, force Goff to throw to Robert Woods and his tight ends. And that's not what the Rams want to do. They want to feed Cam Akers. And if the Packers are good against the run today, they are going to limit the Rams to points. I mean, the team total by far 4 points lower than anybody else, 19.5 for the Rams. So the Packers are a great option there. I personally like if I'm not paying up for Green Bay at 3,900, I'm probably going with the Ravens or, and this may surprise you, the Rams. The Rams, I think, are a team that can easily score a touchdown. Their defense has been great. They create turnovers, and while Aaron Rodgers is not turnover prone, I could see a situation where the Rams, create a fumble, take it to the house, or we would just see some, I don't know. I can just see a situation where the Rams score, and they've just been so productive, and people are not going to want to play them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been using the Rams in a lot of lineups just because they're so cheap. They're 2,600. So normally I like to spend down at defense. And the past 2 games, yes, Aaron Rodgers is playing better than Russell Wilson and better than Kyler Murray, but those 2 quarterbacks are really good. The Rams have scored 16 and 20 DK points in each of those matchups against Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, respectively. So I think the Packers will be very popular, like the Rams as well. If you want someone that's kind of like a mid-price point, the Saints, 3,300, mentioned Brady had 12 interceptions this year. 5 of those came in 2 games against the New Orleans Saints. So I could see them create some turnovers, potentially get to Brady. Might not get the sacks on him, but I think that they'll do enough to create pressure, and that's basically how you beat Brady and force turnovers with him. So I don't mind the Saints at 3,300.
All right, let's look really quickly. We got about 17 minutes. Hello, Andrea Buffalo, who just popped in and said, hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm not rooting for the Bills because I'm, betting on the Ravens, but I kind of want the Bills to win the Super Bowl. Like I feel like Bills fans need that. As an NC State, Frank, you won't get this because you're a Yankees guy. Although I guess football you might understand.
I'm also a Jets and Knicks fan. So let's keep this in perspective.
That's fair. No, you'll get it then. Like I kind of root for the Bills, teams like the Bills, teams like the Browns, because as an NC State fan, it gives me hope for the future that at some point my team will overcome years of crap and stupid mistakes late in games and disastrous outcomes and manage to win a title. Now that's probably insane, but I like to believe that.
I wouldn't mind the Bills winning either, despite the fact that they play in the Jets division. So I don't know if it's heresy to say something like that. Oh, you're rooting for a team within the division of your favorite team. All right, whatever. I have a lot of friends who are Buffalo Bills fans. So it would be fun for those guys to be able to celebrate something. I mean, they really have not had much to celebrate in recent years, basically in their entire lifetime. Just can we shelter the kids? Can we shelter the kids a little bit? Well, because I think either after the Bills made the playoffs or they won their first playoff game, I saw a video online of someone throwing their kid through a table, it
was a gender reveal by Buffalo fans, and
what are we doing?
It was on a pillow, but it was like a table that was like, or it was a cake table, I guess.
Yeah,
it was a little bit of a longer toss than I think was necessary for
kid's head whipped back. I was just like,
yeah. I thought it was a bit over the top.
Think about the kids. Put your dad through a table, all right?
I actually do like that. I'm with you, man. I want the Bills fans to be happy. They deserve something. They deserve something in this life. I'm trying to jam in. I just realized that it's 4:21 and we're going up to kickoff, and that if you don't enter your lineups, if you don't finish them in time, then they take the money. They don't let you fill out. You can't fill. It's kind of annoying. I mean, I guess I understand it, but you can't fill out a lineup after kickoff of the first game, even though they don't show you, and you can swap around. But if you don't fill out the lineup before the first game, isn't that kind of dumb? Don't you think you should be able to fill it out at any point using only the final game that's available?
Yeah, that would make sense, right? Just take all the players away from that first game and whatever. You could just jam players from the other 3 games. That would make a lot of sense. But we'll just put Akers in your lineup and fill it out with a bunch of other people, and then figure it out once we get off here.
That's actually not a terrible idea. Akers, do you feel like Akers is must start?
I do. Yeah, I think at his price point, I have been gravitating towards. It's chalky. I think they're going to be very highly rostered. Singletary and Cam Akers. We didn't really talk about the Buccaneers situation or the Chiefs, but I'm
looking to be around 40 to 50% owned at minimum. And Akers could honestly be higher.
Yeah. Yep. I think
you know what? Singletary could be higher too, because what, they're going to trot out the corpse of TJ Yeldon.
Yep. I think so.
Angry just asked, what are your guys' thoughts on Bills wide receiver props?
We can pull those up.
Sure.
We're looking.
Let's bring up William Hill. Thanks, Debo. Look at Debo pulling the levers back there. What a guy. Actually, I happen to have those up. So let me hit the share button. Stop screen, share screen. Could probably do without telling the listeners and the viewers how I'm handling this. So Bills wide receiver props. I really wish, and I've said this a million times, but I'm going to echo it again now. I really wish they would group these by position at William Hill. So I hope William Hill is listening instead of by team. So we have, here was what we have. Totals for, I don't mind Josh Allen's over 295, by the way. Cole Beasley over 49.5. John Brown over 44.5. Stephon Diggs 90.5. And then Dawson Knox down there at 25.5. Devin Singletary 20.5. That's too low. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that is too low. Beasley, these numbers are low. He is banged up, so it's kind of a tricky situation there.
I wouldn't trust Beasley, man. Did you see him last week?
Yeah.
That dude was like, he looked like he'd been riding a horse for 4.5 consecutive days. The way he was like hobbling off, like limping off the field. I mean, it's too risky. You know, I just don't think the wind is not going to be that bad out here. So I think there's chances for deeper shots. I love that John Brown over. You know, John Brown is a guy that people are going to be down on in a big way because he laid a goose egg against the Colts last week. Like literally didn't have a single point scored. But if you look at John Brown, had 4 targets, and I think they'll get him more involved here. Especially with the way that the Ravens work. You know, we have to assume that Marlon Humphrey is going to be up on Stephon Diggs. I don't think I want to go over on Diggs at 90.5, even though he could certainly bust through it. You know, if it's man coverage and they're sending blitzes, he's going to get a lot of open looks. If, you know, he's going to get open. I'm just a little worried about that. But I think Brown over 44.5, there's a decent chance he's matched up on Marcus Peters a lot. And Marcus Peters is an awesome corner, friend of the podcast, by the way, but Marcus Peters loves to gamble in coverage. And John Brown is a guy where if Marcus Peters is gambling, we could see John Brown take the top off in a couple of spots. So I would like the over on John Brown 44.5 for sure. And then I'm sure that they have I wouldn't mess with his 3.5 receptions. I wouldn't touch that. Oh, that'd be an under for John Brown if I was betting it. Longest reception though. Well, give me something. 20.5. Get out of here. Take the over.
Yeah. If you're betting John Brown over his receiving yards in general, over the 44.5, you might as well take over longest reception as well at 20.5. And I agree with you. Marcus Peters, great corner, a ball hawk, someone who can make plays. We've seen it anywhere he's been in his career, but can be prone to, all right, when he's trying to make those plays, he bites a little bit, and then, you know, some receivers can get behind him. So especially John Brown, we know how fast he is. I was looking at Gabe Davis, who had a very solid game last week. I believe it was only 4 targets, but he caught all 4, and he performed, I think he had like 60, 70 yards, something like that. So his receptions is 1.5. It's totally juiced. It's minus 190. So keep that in mind. But 24.5 receiving yards, especially with Cole Beasley banged up. Sometimes they run out these 4 wide receiver sets. I like Gabe Davis, 24.5.
Yeah, I can get down with that. And there's also a chance that the Bills look at what the Ravens did against the Titans, and they think that the Ravens are going to try and do that schematically against Buffalo too. Like maybe they're thinking, all right, they're going to try and come out and stop the run and make Josh Allen beat us, or they come out and they say, all right, so if they're going to try and do that, let's counter it and let's go ahead and be the team that comes out 4 wide and starts slinging the ball around. All right, we're going to wrap at 4:30. That gives me 5 minutes to squeeze in these other lineups. So if we got 4 minutes left, any other questions in the YouTube or Twitch chat about spots where about bets you think you're interested in making? And while we wait for them, Frank, what if you're looking at these 2 games? And I know we didn't talk about Buffalo quite as much. Any chance McKenzie gets used? Liv WS, longest reception for him there is over 0.5 yards. The problem with McKenzie and the longest reception there. And I understand the logic and maybe going to it, but the problem for him is a lot of his usage comes on jet sweeps, and those could end up being classified as rushing attempts. He's also their special teams guy, and I don't think he had a single target in week 18 against the Colts last week. So I would probably stay away from McKenzie. I think they'll be using more as a gadget situation. Deanna Smith on YouTube asked Dobbins rush yards over 60.5. Absolute smash.
Love it. Love it.
Love it.
Love the Colts, I think, combined for over 120 rushing yards last week. Taylor didn't necessarily look great, but Nyheim Hines did as the change of pace back. So I think they want to keep that ball away from Josh Allen.
74. I mean, he cashed the over unless you listen to me at the last minute on this show. Bet the 74.5.
Yep, I like it. I like the over there. Just going back to McKenzie, he played 8% of the snaps last week. So
yeah, I wouldn't take that over on reception.
Super risky with him.
It's not a player prop, but I love Rams over 1.5 field goals. Yeah. I mean, look, Sean McVay is extremely conservative. If they have a short fourth down, I think he'll probably kick instead of letting Jared Goff throw. Like, he's not going to let an injured Jared Goff try and force. And remember, no Cooper Kupp, which means Jair Alexander is going to be draped all over Robert Woods. So, I mean, the only path to victory for the Rams here is an A+ elite defensive performance, and Cam Akers absolutely going off.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Which, by the way, do we bring up? I don't think we looked at it.
I will just throw another prop out there. I like Tom Brady to throw an interception in that game.
Ooh, I like that. Let's see. I absolutely. Oh, this is a good bet too, I think. Cam Akers over receiving yards, 20.5. It's juiced up to -135. It was like 14.5 earlier in the week. Oh my goodness gracious. His rushing yards is up to 81.5. Would you still take it there, Frank?
What is it?
Cam Akers rushing yards, 81.5. It was 68.5 last night, and it has been absolutely gas canned.
That's
pretty
that's
pricey.
I think you have a nice little middle situation though. If you got that at, whatever it was at 68.5.
I got it at 78.5. The reason I like his over rushing attempts there at 19.5. Ooh, over receptions 2.5. They don't love using him in the passing game. But I mean, so how do you think they replace Cooper Kupp? Boy, I don't like the Rams here at all anymore.
Oh man, you shouldn't. Robert Woods, you mentioned he's probably gonna get Jair Alexander, but I just think he's gonna get force fed so much volume. So I think he was 5.5 receptions, 55.5 yards. I don't mind going over on either of those. Tom Brady to throw an interception, -145 on William Hill. So,
wow, that's pretty high. I mean, the issue is that in Bruce Arians' system, they're willing to like sling it all over the place and chuck it down the field. All right, so my best bet for the day, it was Cam Akers over rushing yards. I'm going to now say it's Cam Akers over receiving yards in this spot. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
20.5. I just think they're not going to. Malcolm Brown is not a receiving back. And if they're trailing, Cam Akers is going to have to catch some passes out of the backfield. I think he can get to 25.
Yeah. And he should presumably see more targets with Cooper Kupp out. So 2 targets last week for him, 45 yards, 4 targets the week before that, 52. He's gone over, what did you say, 20.5?
20.5. That is correct.
Yeah, he's gone over that in 4 out of his last 5 games. So he doesn't get a lot of volume, but he makes big plays when he does catch the ball. So I don't mind that one for Cam Akers. I think in general, just for him to score a touchdown, anytime touchdown score -120 for Akers, one of my favorite bets of the day.
Okay, so I'm looking at Cam Akers here. I got -125. I'm gonna roll with Frank here and put a half unit on that if I get this thing to load. So my book takes it forever it's like slow as hell to load when in like the 5 minutes leading up to the game. It's very frustrating. And as a result, I'm probably going to end up missing my first touchdown bets that we gave out. So I got Akers over receiving yards. I like Akers over rush yards. Even at 81.5, although that's pretty steep to go up that high. Like he could end up with 80 rushing yards and a touchdown, and you're just absolutely daggered there. So be cautious if you're betting it. Try and find the best number, of course. And with these props, it is usually good to get them in early, but we do the show an hour before, so there's nothing I can do to help you. You'd have to listen to the Pick Six podcast and listen to our best bet show, because I said to bet the Cam Akers over rush yards at 68.5. We must have moved it, Frank. This is fun, buddy. It flew by. That was the fastest hour of my day.
Yeah, super fast. Appreciate you having me on. Love the glasses.
Thanks, bud.
No Just for Men, not yet. So
I'm sure it'll be there in a couple of years. Enjoy the football, everybody, and talk to you soon. Let's go. Let's go make some money.